a hot piano player. I made some overtures. Could you talk about the University of Arizona? Why? I want to go on the road. I said, that's a noble cause. Let me talk to your parents about that. And the parents said, well, we don't mind, except that it might be nice if there might be something else. Okay. So I showed up at his house in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, and walked in the back door, and there on the washer was, maybe it was the dryer, was a score, a full band score. Oh, isn't that nice? It's kind of laid out there. I wonder if I'm supposed to notice that. Oh, it can write. Ooh. Yeah. And then his girlfriend from next door, I think she was 17, she looked at me and she said, you're not taking this guy away. There is no possible way that you are leaving with him. Get out of here. It's true. That's how she was. Boom! Out! Out of here! And Guy Moon came to school here. And it was 1981, there was 1982. Nobody spent any time in the recording studio. He spent time in the recording studio with all his friends, like Carl Cherry sitting over there in the orange shirt, who was playing the drums whenever Guy needed some drums, and Guy used the studio when people were afraid of it. Seriously. It was occupied by jazzers, and it was before the period of time. Here was the line of thought that ran around the school on the second floor and the first floor. I'm sorry to say that we who are in the music profession, the teaching of it, do not record. I heard that a lot of times. We do not record. Recording is not necessary. We teach and we can convey line. It's a one-on-one process. I thought, no. It's so much easier, and if it comes from the inside, and the people who are dealing with this push the students into a recording situation. You have no idea how fast you'll learn. And Guy just showed them how fast you could learn. He lasted about 3 years. I figured it was going to last 2. And he walked out. He walked into Los Angeles, and folks, nobody looked back. It was, well, he looked back here. He smiled on us and said, yeah, the recording studio is a way to go. And that's what the deal is that's the kind of support that we need. I always hoped it would come from the inside, and it did very much. Won't you welcome Guy Moon, please?
I'm going to reconfigure it a little bit here for some of it.
You're not here to retire, right?
Well, he was up till midnight on Monday trying to get ready for a series, doing the pilot for a series. No, this guy's not retired, even though he's downsizing.
I'm downsizing. This is my new studio. Almost. So I'm just going to try to take you to, I'm a composer for about the last 25 years in Los Angeles. Composing has been my main work and my main source of income. It really helped to that end. It helped to be in this program here because there was a lot of different styles and a lot of different opportunities to get involved with here. So I think it really prepared me well to handle some of the requests of this kind of music for media thing, which I'm going to try to explain to you and demonstrate a little bit here too. What's this class called? Is it
Recording studio production.
okay? Recording studio production. So those years. When did the studio arrive?
81.
81. So my first semester was spent with Wiley down there soldering wires together. And I
Still have that passport.
And I loved it because I knew what would come the next semester, and that was the recording studio. And there's not a day that goes by in my career, in my job responsibilities that I don't use some kind of tool that was somehow related to those 3 or 4 years developing down in the recording studio. So now, 40 years later, it's become kind of a popular thing to have a recording studio at a university. But at that point, it was extremely rare. I only remember 3 of them at that point when I was looking, but this one that they put down in there was awesome because it was just a recording studio that was an existing business and they just moved it downstairs. So take advantage of it if you haven't. It's great. Okay, so music for media, film, TV, and video games. So first I want to start by seeing if you can recognize some music that is out there. So I'm going to play some examples of music for media. And just as soon as you recognize it, just shout it out, okay? Don't be bashful. Ready? Name that thing. Well, we haven't tested the volume, so we might have to adjust that.
Bond.
James Bond, yes.
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, correct. Yes. Oh, you heard her. You should go and name that too. That was one note. Very identifiable.
Frozen. Lego?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. Good. I think I missed it. Volume shouting.
Hobbit, Lord of the Rings.
That's a trick question.
Shire.
Lord of the Rings again.
Yeah, it's a Shire. Fucking got it.
Very right. Good. Good.
Why can't this be my exam? I don't have an 8 in this class.
It is, we're recording you.
Oh, fantastic.
Forrest Gump.
Alan Silvestri, U-O-K.
Alan Silvestri was here, right?
Jaws.
Oh,
No, his daughter was.
yeah, so he came, did he come to the class?
And he did,
Oh,
he
daughter.
did, he could make it. Be here.
Okay, what did I got?
Jaws.
Okay,
Jaws 2.
Jaws. I got off track. I heard it over there.
Yeah.
Anything at least.
Okay, corral.
Did I hear
Dirty
it?
Harry.
Good, the bad, the ugly.
That's an oldie, but that's a classic. I turned the team. Wait, where am I going? I'm button happy here.
Godfather.
Your teacher got it. One note.
2 notes.
Correct! Who knew Richard Strauss composed music for film?
That's
I don't think it was on purpose, but... Okay, a little about me.
Oh.
There's
Nice.
my studio. I'm going to downsize to to this. Just kidding. Didn't Roy spend way too much time?
Tell us a little bit about what you got there.
Okay, so the keyboard is a Roland A80. It's just a MIDI controller. It runs into the computer, whatever, and I run Logic to compose. Those iPads there, unfortunately, they're not lit up. They have a lot of buttons and sliders, and that's where I choose the sounds and mostly the articulations that I'm going to use. A lot of my compositions tend to be orchestrally oriented, so there's a lot of different articulations that we need to have accessible. And this is, in this case, I'm strictly talking about MIDI here. So once in a while, if I'm lucky, I'll be able to have some musicians come in and replace some of the MIDI stuff. But then over on the left, you got your patchway there with those white rows there. I've got some Adam S3A main speakers there, the vertical ones, which I just love. There's a big old woofer behind that. And then those EV500s are back there. They're just if I want to really move some air. They don't really sound very good, but they're very loud. Over in the right corner, you see I have a Line 6 guitar effects unit. Then I have some toys here from my shows. Cow Chicken, and that's from Vicky from Fairly Odd Parents. There's another Cow Chicken.
See another cow chicken up the
If I may,
Right.
since he's been doing Cow and Chicken from 2001 to 2017, most of you, excuse me,
That one's Fairly Odd.
Fairly Odd Parents from 2001 to 2017, those of you who are devotees of that particular, or have been raised by his music.
Raise your hand if you've seen Fairly Odd Parents.
Yeah.
Yes! Yes! Okay, more about me. There's my hot family.
I know that picture.
There's two of them over here.
So did the girlfriend become the wife?
There's me and my granddaughter.
Yep.
There's my dad and my granddaughter. She's measuring stuff. There's my dad right there.
Everything at our house was measured for you.
And here's my mom and our granddaughter.
Granddad's the favorite.
We're really mixing things up here.
And here's one of my favorite people. Doing something that is one of his favorite things to do. Sitting behind a piano keyboard.
We've noticed that.
In a studio.
Okay, enough about me. Well, kind of. So here's about 50 seconds of music by me.
The sound of her name makes the little kids cry.
Hey Vicky, you're so sicky. Just the thought of being around you makes me so sicky. He's a phantom.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a lot of different demo reels, but that is the shortest one. Okay, so how does music affect picture? Let's dive into this. Okay, can I get, can you make notes for a sec? What I want you to do, what we're going to do here is, we're going to take music to a certain picture. I'm going to play some pieces on the piano based on your suggestions. So in a minute I'm going to ask you just to shout out a style, a musical genre, or a musical mood. And the reason I want you to shout it out is that I'm going to hand pick them out of wherever I hear, because a lot of times a style might be impossible to convey into music. So I'm going to collect about 5 or 6, but I just want you to keep shouting. Anybody in here, if you can think of a musical style or genre, when I say go, I want you to shout them out. But I've asked one of your friends to accompany this process. So Jeff, would you come up? And I'm going to ask Jeff to score this exercise with something that could be construed as silent picture music.
Just want to take everything down.
Please use the soft pedal. And
You know him pretty well.
when you hear me shout my 5th or 6th words, what's your name?
Matt.
Matt, thanks. Matt's going to write down. Whatever you hear me shout, write down. Whenever you hear me get into about 5 or 6, then I want you to accelerate the pace.
Mr. Smedley, is it possible you could show me middle C?
Take your finger, index finger.
Okay.
And that goes right
What the heck is that?
Yes. Okay.
This is how it's been. Really, seriously.
So when I say go, Jeff's going to start playing. He's going to accompany us. And Matt's going to write down, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Style, genre, or mood, huh?
And here's another. Well, you have another assignment. You have 2 requirements to this composition. One is that the soft pedal is on, and one is that when you hear me get to my 5th or 6th word, you start to accelerate. And the last one, and the most difficult one, is do not resolve until I yell done. Can you do that, Smedley?
I'm done now.
Ready? Go!
Noir.
Noir, yeah. Go! There you go. Okay. Hip hop. Oh. Okay, I'm just going to repeat it. Jazz. Big band. Soul. Give me some moods.
Electroacoustic.
Electro.
Exciting.
Exciting. Intense. Good. That soft pedal down.
Looks like
Suspenseful.
Suspenseful. Good. 2 more. Nervous. Good. Last one. Antsy. Good. And we're done. Very nice.
I'm glad I'm retired.
Okay, so I'll just take the list. I want to pick and choose from here. Okay, the reason I wanted random ideas was to show that hopefully we'll go through this exercise in about 5 or 6 minutes. It'll show that music does make a difference. Most of the music you see in film and media and video games supports what you're watching because it's professional and it's done by good people and people kind of know what they're doing, but you rarely get a chance to see music that doesn't work. So maybe we're going to see some of that right now in a random. Okay, switch to QuickTime. I put the directions to myself in the presentation.
it's a good idea. Very smart.
Okay, this is a scene from a film that I scored about 2 years ago. It's called The Crash. It's on Amazon Prime and so forth. It was in the theaters maybe 2 weeks. It's not an independent film. It was directed and produced by a classmate of my daughter Chelsea's. So he would stop by the studio when they were growing up and once in a while. So he really thought it was interesting that I was willing to score his film. So it was a lot of fun because it's very different than most of my cartoon stuff, but we'll get into more of that later. Okay, let's do, let's try some jazz. And that's what we all started with here, the jazz program. So let's see.
is sponsored by TD Ameritrade.
Sounds good. Morning, America. Goes well. Okay.
Morning. Hey. Hey. I'm sorry about it. Have a good day. Good day. Hey, Mom. Let's go.
You already know, don't you?
Doesn't work.
Okay, what else do we have here? Suspenseful. Like that.
Opening bell is sponsored by TD Ameritrade.
Sounds good. Morning, America.
Bones away.
Okay.
Morning. Hey. Hey, hey. Don't forget your onions, yeah? I'm sorry about the boy. Yeah, okay. Have a good day. Yeah. Big day. Hey, He's got it.
Better? Let's take a little break and see if we know what's happening in this scene. Any ideas what this scene's trying to say to the viewer? Anything? A word or a sentence? From what you've seen so far? Uneasy? Good. Yeah, it's impossible to know what they're uneasy about because you didn't see the first half.
Yeah.
So. Any others? What
Well, it seems like the mom is trying to compensate for the awkwardness between the two of them. The daughter's trying to escape from it, and it's just uncomfortable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. That's a subtext. Anything else? This is great because sometimes it is the job of the composer to touch on multiple purposes. And that's when the subtext comes in. Subtext is generally a music that's played that isn't supporting what's happening visually on camera, but that's supporting what's happening underneath the skin emotionally or psychologically. So let's try another one. Nervous.
Opening bell is sponsored by TD Ameritrade.
Sounds good. Morning, America.
Bones away.
Morning. Hey. Hey, hey. Don't forget your onions, yeah? I'm sorry about the boy. Okay. Have a good day. Yeah. Big day. Hey, Mom. Yeah.
Okay, what else we got? Hip hop. How the heck would I do hip hop on the piano? I like that one.
You gotta use the side of the piano to make like a beat in your foot.
Oh, yeah.
Feeling around. There you go.
Opening bell is sponsored by TD Ameritrade.
Sounds good. Morning, America.
Bones away.
I should go on YouTube. Okay. Let's see
It's
here.
kind of like a 90s.
I'm going to do intensity. Okay. Oh, antsy. Okay, we have intense and we have antsy. I got to do both of those. Intense.
Opening bell is sponsored by TD Ameritrade.
Sounds good. Morning, America.
Bones away.
Hey.
grandiose, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Start off very good.
Okay, Ansi.
Opening Bell is sponsored by TD Ameritrade.
Good morning, America. On its way.
That last note fits.
Okay. Did I do them all?
Noir.
Oh, yeah.
Noir.
Oh, noir. Holy smokes. I don't know if I can handle it. He could do noir.
Aye.
You could do noir.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, did any of those work? I mean, for real?
For me, one of the reasons why none of them worked really well was that it was a dialogue scene and the volume was loud like you'd have in an action scene.
Yeah. It didn't even seem to try to make it even kind of work.
Yes.
It was kind of like,
That's true. I did a poor job at that. But
Was it intentional or?
well, it was enough for me to be creating a style. Now, if I did a second pass, I could start to match it to the picture a little better. I haven't seen this movie for 2 years. It's not an excuse, but it also shows how the spotting of it is important as well, because if somebody were to just put this stuff in without paying attention to the dialogue and what kind of, what the director was trying to convey, then it would be just as bad. So,
What's a
yes.
spotting session to you?
Excuse me?
What's a spotting session to
The
you?
spotting session is when the composer and the director get together and decide where to put music, what kind of music, and how it should move and function with the story. And I have a spotting session on another project a little later, so you can see that. That's fun. Yes.
I almost think none of them work because there shouldn't really be music in the scene. Like, because if he's trying to convey sort of awkwardness and unease.
That's a very good point.
It's easier to.
And that
Just let
we
it
talk
hang.
about in the spotting session too, because, okay, see those numbers at the bottom? Those are our SIFTI time code. That means that we're in reel 4, and we're 16 minutes into reel 4. So if the average reel is 15 minutes long, that means we're at about an hour into the movie. Now, if there was music this whole first hour, then the director would say, don't put music here. Because typically you want to have a little breath at times. So there are scenes that it's more appropriate that there is no music, especially if they're good actors. In this movie, they're really good actors. So there was a lot of scenes that I didn't need to score. But this score does have a scene. I'm going to show you the music that was in the final. But I'm going to give a better attempt now that you mentioned that at just coming up with, if I were sitting there watching this, knowing what the director wants, and coming up with a piece.
Opening Bell is sponsored by TD Ameritrade.
Good morning, America. Moments away. Okay.
Morning. Hey. Don't forget your vitamins. Yeah. Babe, I'm sorry about it, boy. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Have a good day. Yeah. Big day. Hey, Mom. Yeah. He's got it. Really? Yeah, he's got it. He's got it.
Better, right? Okay, so I'm going to play it. What's next? Oh, I got to go into. I will now play you the piece that ended up in the final mix. Now, I'll just say something after. So here it is. Here it is. Oh, wait a minute. Where'd I go? Oh. Does anybody want to try this right now? Carl? Let's do it.
Ooh, I didn't know you played.
Just hit record. Oh, that's the, no. Is it? No, that's right. Just hit return.
Got somebody.
Okay, good. Anybody wants to?
Opening bell is sponsored by TD Ameritrade.
That's good morning, America. Moments away. Okay.
Morning. Hey. Hey. Don't forget your vitamins. Yeah. Good. Babe, I'm sorry about the boy. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Have a good day. Yeah. Big day. Hey, Mom. Yeah. He's got it. Really? Yeah, he's got it. He's got it.
Okay, what difference between my score and Carl's score? What was the difference in the feeling? I'm sorry. What it did for the story? What did it do to the story?
I think you focused on maybe certain mood shifts, time placement, differently than when he placed his mood shift and his attention change happened at a different time than yours.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, the time gap between notes kind of made it seem a little bit longer, and that kind of fed the whole suspense, and also helps the viewer hone in on what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because the first method a composer uses to create suspense is to not play anything. I mean, you have to get something initially, but then if you just let it rest, people are like, okay. I mean, subconsciously you're going, where's the next note? You know, and it can even be used to. Some directors use it to fix the acting. This is the last stage of the process of making a movie or a TV show is the sound. It's the very last thing. There was some coloring they do at that time, but in post-production is the last stage. This is their last chance to make it the best thing they can. If their actors kind of weren't so great, they'll lean on the composer. Anybody else? Yes, come on. What's your name? Annie. Annie.
All right.
Opening bell is sponsored by TD Ameritrade.
That's good morning, America. Moments away. Okay.
Morning. Hey. Don't forget your vitamins. Yeah. Good. Babe, I'm sorry about the boy. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Have a good day. Yeah. Big day. Hey, Mom. Yeah. He's got it. Really? Yeah, he's got it. He's got it.
Good. So what was different about specifically Annie's ending? What kind of chord? Minor. All the rest of us were happy. Which actually the director I know would choose the minor chord anyways because he doesn't like. There's no tonic major chords in this score because he just, whenever he hears a tonic major, you know, there's majors in passing chords, but he would never let me play resolve on a major chord, which was great. It was a great challenge. I wrote like 45 minutes without resolving on a major chord. And it's not to say that there's no joy in this film, it's just that he wanted to land and live more with the challenges and the problems that this family had. She's the mom, and then you got the daughter, and then this guy that comes later is the dad. So, okay, that was super cool.
Opening the...
Oh, now we got to hear what ended up in the film. Technology. Okay, we did that already. Here we go.
Opening Bell is sponsored by TD Ameritrade.
Morning, America. Moments away. Okay.
Morning. Hey. Hey. Don't forget your vitamins now. Babe, I'm sorry about the boy. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Have a good day. Yeah. Big day. Hey, Mom. Yeah. He's coming. Really? Yeah, he's coming. He's coming.
Does it work?
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice to have 50 string players on it. I mean, that makes a bit of a difference. So, what's the difference between with this one and the ones that we worked on?
This one moves,
Yeah.
man.
A lot faster. Yeah, you got the. Not only there's a set tempo, but there's also these 16th notes rippling through the whole thing. So that if you saw the rest of the movie, you'd hear those 16th notes, and you'd probably recognize that they are attached to that theme on the, at least let's see, the piano. What key? This one. That's the family's theme. So that comes in and out, but the stuff you're probably talking about is the more techno stuff there's a beat under there and a little sequence. Now that sequence is the theme for the internet. The internet is the villain in this movie. Because it's based on the stock market crash of 2008, but it's fiction, it takes place in Chicago. And this internet, they're being hacked, and the stock market gets hacked, and there's guys messing around. So the main theme that the director wanted was this theme for the internet. So that's what I chose. It's just one note that stays on that note for the whole movie. Is that a C? And I try to make it be able to get evil at times, and also there's a rhythm in there. It wasn't very evident in this, but there's a rhythm that's binary rhythm. So we know that binary can only use two factors. So I'm using an eighth note and a 16th note. So, or an eighth note and two 16th notes. So you'll hear. Kind of luring or looming under that. The tone's changing, but also the rhythm is suggesting that there's a binary villain behind it. So I was really proud of that. The director had no idea. Yes.
One other thing that seemed different than before. Before the music ended with the scene, it seemed like here you actually continued it to introduce the next scene.
Yes, this is a montage that goes 4 minutes. So for the purposes here, I just wanted to use one particular scene because this scene this is toward the end of the movie, and it's really getting dismal, but this scene is one that brings a little hope into it. So not only is it kind of more appropriate for a piano, for demonstration purposes, but It's one of my favorite scenes, because it actually does start a healing process between the mother and the daughter, too.
And there were some major components in there too. Sonic.
Yeah, they did, I did hear a major chord from 2 bars, and then
Yeah.
I went back, so that was the only 2 bars he'd let me have. But it was on the family, so, and the movie ends in a hopeful way. The guy, this guy, who's the dad, is accused of felony because they thought he was the one hacking the market. So what he had to do was prove that he wasn't, and he proved that it was a machine. It wasn't even humans. So at the end, he's exonerated, and he basically drops out of the business and just goes back home. So that was that. Okay, awesome. What do we have next? Tell me, program. The spotting session. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. Are we out at 2:50?
No. Around a quarter after.
Quarter after? Woohoo! Anybody else want to try? No. Okay, so this is a spotting session with the producer of Fairly Odd Parents. His name is Butch Hartman. I chose this because we can follow it all the way through to the finish so you can see, but this is a very rare method he uses to spot. He just sings me what he wants to hear with his mouth. So you'll hear him. He uses once in a while.
With your mouth?
He'll use a few words. Yes, he sings with his mouth.
Incredible.
You'll hear a few words here and there, but for 170 episodes of this show, from start to finish, from episode 1 through 170, he just sang me what he wants to hear. It's very. I don't think I've ever worked with another producer who leans on that. Sometimes they'll sing it to show you if they have something in mind, but so you'll definitely be able to tell who he is because he's in charge of the session. You might hear me commenting in the background, but let's just listen. Let's just spy on this spotting session. It's probably about 30-second scene. And this was recorded on my screen. The way we spot is I take my computer, or we can go on Skype. We don't even have to leave the comfort of our homes or studios. And I just do a screen recording. So this is a screen recording of the spotting session. This particular one, I'm in the room with the producer because he doesn't like to do it over the internet. So I have to drive into Burbank to spot in his office. My other producers all like, oh yeah, let's just Skype. But here we go. Whoops.
Whoops. So close.
Now this is kind of a montage. We're starting the montage here. And they're a little bit dangerous too, so let's have a little bit of a dangerous element here. So we have like a little montage, but you can still score it like dun 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 dun
That's the tempo of the whole series.
I know.
Sad, 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 very, very, very sad. Happy, 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 happy.
Okay.
Somebody needs to market that.
Right?
That's fabulous.
Just have only that be the music to a whole episode.
YouTube! Okay, so, yeah, question.
Do you always get that much input from a producer?
These episodes, well, from this producer. Some don't say a word. I mean, I've been fired off jobs because the producer can't communicate. He's like, I did a series, 13 half hours for Cartoon Network. The producer was 23 years old. 13 half hours, this takes a half a year to do. out of all the 13 spotting sessions, he said 3 words. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just do what I feel is right, and everything's fine. I don't get notes back from anything, and we're going fine, and it starts to air, and it's doing well. It gets to second season, I call up, okay, when's the second season start? Oh, I'm sorry, guy, we're not going to use you. Oh. Now you tell me. So that's all the information I have. So I'm just assuming that I wasn't giving him what he wanted with those 3 words. What is that? That's an average of a word every 4 episodes. 1 word.
What were the words? What were the words?
Oh, geez, I've blocked it out. Yeah, it was traumatic. It was The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Does anybody see that?
I love that show.
Yeah, so the first season, that's my music. From then on, I don't know how many seasons they made, but it's somebody else. Yeah.
So Butch was also in charge of Danny Phantom as well.
Yeah, Butch did Danny Phantom, Fairly Odd Parents, Tough Puppy, and Bunsen is a Beast. This is the most recent one, but that one only went in 1 season.
Is he also like this for just every show he does?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The music in Danny Phantom is a lot like, it's not as excitable as this.
Yeah, we saw that in that little short I did, just the theme from Danny Phantom. But yeah, that music is much more heavy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the spotting session. Yeah, question. Sorry.
Do you feel like you lose any type of artistic control when somebody is giving you?
I never started with any.
Yeah.
But I don't mind. I don't care. It's the job. And this is why word gets out and people hire you because you're supplying what they want. I guess I could say I prefer working for Butch than the other guy. I can't remember his name, from Billy and Mandy, because Butch communicates what he wants very clearly, and you're moving on, and you know what you're doing, and you know what you're aiming after, and you can, as long as you hit it, with Butch, as long as I hit it, I was done. The only times I had to do retakes was if I didn't quite hit it. Remember like that, what was it, the intensity score I was trying to do, and I said, I didn't quite nail that. So Butch will sense that, and he'll say, no, do it, try it again. Okay, so, did you notice the times where, now Butch, producers in this case, especially Butch, they're mainly storytellers who, their challenge is gathering enough people around them to actually put it on media. So, he's a storyteller, but since he came up with the idea for the show, he's the executive producer, and you might call him the director, but in animation, the director is a whole different thing. It's more has to do with the drawing and the mechanism of how the animation goes in the frames. So, but in TV and live action, the director would definitely be the visionary. So in animation, it's, at least in series TV, it's more like the executive producer. So Butch Hartman is the executive producer. He's a storyteller, so did you sense that he was trying to tell a story?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And what gave you that sense? What he did? What did he do that gave you that sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Emotional words?
You changed the mood for
Yeah.
like the great scene.
Well,
Change the mood when he was singing, right? Like, whack, 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 whack.
and he also changed what he was doing with the music that was kind of hinting at what was going on, like when he went to the circus and did the da-da-da-da-da-da,
Right.
you know,
And that was
doing-
recognizable, right?
Yeah, right, right.
So, let alone, most people don't do this, but I've never met anybody who can communicate that precisely with music. And I literally, when you were doing the tempo, that is Butch defined the tempo of the entire series. It's 180. That's 220 right there.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah.
So, I guess, would that be 4/4? 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah.
So that would be like big band swing, 220.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once in a while you got to go out of it, but 97% of the music for this series was at 220. Danny Phantom was 180.
Half a turn.
I'm just calling out the Butch shows because they have the same tempo. Bunsen is a Beast was 160. I forget what Tough Puppy was. So let's see what. Okay. So now I take that And I try to take what he's communicated and put it on the picture. So we're going to switch to logic. And I'm going to demonstrate, okay, one second here to switch input devices.
Coming out, isn't it?
Do I have it?
Yep.
Hello? Let me just test this. Da-da-da-da-da-da-dee-doo. Da-da-da-da-da. Okay.
Well.
Now, there's two ways that I go about when I start to write it. And that's I always write a guide. And because I'm a piano player and a keyboard player, I can usually do it like we've normally been doing. But I find it a little more freeing to do it, to sing it with my mouth. So that's how I'm going to do this. That's how I'm going to write this guide. I'm going to take all the things hopefully that he was trying to communicate and put it into this. And this is the process. This is the actual cue, the logic file that I use for this particular cue. And you see a lot of MIDI stuff there, but since I can't bring all my rigs and everything, we're just going to do a certain portions of this process. Okay. I think I'm going to turn the dialogue down because I'm using this mic. It's just so we'll get the whole room sound. But when I do it at home, I have a headset that has a mic on it, like a sports announcer.
Britney Spears.
Oh yeah, Britney Spears. That's the thing. So let's go. Where to start? Okay. Okay, I didn't get that. Let's see. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 passes. Oh no, I remember. You know what? I'm just going to look at what he did. One more time. The spawning session. Okay. Let's play this bad boy.
Now this is kind of a montage. They'll score it like and you can get in there with the music with the circus. Sad, 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 very, very, very sad.
Okay, so he's trying to say there, when the clowns smile, they've been cheered up. That was the main thing I was trying to get, so let's try that again. Okay, then he wants that to be sad too when they're crying. So let's try that. One second.
Yeah, I lost a chunk. Rip.
Gotta set my punch out. Oh, he always wants a bing on a thumbs up. So let's do that. See, the cats are kind of gnarly and sad, so he wants this kind of rowdy, low stuff. Now she comes, it's happy. Oh, no, it's not happy till the cat smiles. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba. Wee! Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. Ba-do-do-do-do-do-do. Okay. So it's rough, but okay, let's hear it. Man, this is really, really loud, but let's hear. Okay, so there's the, there it is. Now, all right, let me go back to, you can see here, there's a bunch of MIDI stuff. I order my MIDI tracks just like the orchestra score. So the winds are on top, the flutes, starts with flutes, goes on to oboes, clarinets, bassoons, saxophones, very, very good. Saxophones are great for comedy because it's easy for them to sound funny. Trumpets, horns, bones, tuba, percussion, strings, harp. Then farther down I go to more like a rhythm section, like I have a kind of like a big band rhythm section and a rock and roll section, and I can customize that. A place for loops and a place to reuse previous library cues on the tracks there. So you can see we got a rhythm section here with electric bass, piano, drums. We got upright bass. We got a harp, some percussion, a single solo violin right there, which you'll obviously identify. Timpani, chimes. So this is the orchestration part that we're not going to hit today, but that's another class. But now let's see how close my guide track got to what actually was written. Play the final scene.
Yeah.
Did I do it? So could you tell where I was trying to be kind of down and then up?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very rare style of composition too, which Butch really likes, is this very cut and dry, change on the dime. In the film stuff, typically a film director would want to stay as far away as that as possible, because your job is, one of your jobs, is to connect the previous scene with the next scene. A lot of times, composers, you'll see, the next movie you watch, identify when there's a piece of music that doesn't change over when there's a scene change. It's a great mechanism that they can use to actually connect the story, as opposed to this style is trying to separate story ideas and to compartmentalize and identify. Oh yeah, if there is any particular band that does anybody remember seeing this episode?
Yes.
It's called good. It's called Sash and a Rash. I'm not sure. I can't remember why it's called that. But if there's any style of music that this show lives in, it's that kind of big band stuff. But it never gets like screaming big band. It's always a section here or an instrument there. Because you probably heard the Barry sax doing some stuff, and it just has a nice, light, kind of funny feel to it. So that's, and the main title of this show was done with a big band too. The main title is the only music that I didn't write in this series. So that was written before I was on the job by Ron Jones, who's a great composer too. I'm sure you've heard a bunch of his stuff. So, any questions about that process? Fun. What else do we got? Oh yeah, there's the business part. Okay, so this is just a few touching on the business part, because it is the music business. My firm belief is that it's 50-50. You can make music all day long, but if you don't have somebody, or if you're don't have the ability to sell it or get it into someone's hands who can sell it, then it sits there. And, so I am not business. I'm not inclined in a business sense. My wife Jenny does a lot of this kind of administration stuff, such as cue sheets. This is a cue sheet. This is an example that you get off the BMI website. I'm a BMI writer. So you need to be very specific about the title of the song, because there's hundreds and thousands of songs being registered every day, and if you have the same title as another person, it can complicate matters. And I just went to a seminar where the granddaughter of Alex North is an administrator with his publishing, and they were receiving thousands of dollars from a song. I forget what the title is. Just for these purposes, let's just call it Party Time was the song, right? So they had Party Time registered with BMI, and they were getting thousands. This is in the last year, getting thousands and thousands of dollars, and they can't figure out where it's coming from. So they finally dug in, and they called BMI, and they couldn't do anything. So they dug into it, they investigated, and found out it was one of these DJs that came out with this title. And because in some country, like maybe it was Germany, if their system isn't quite as, I shouldn't say Germany because they're pretty hip. Let's say Yugoslavia is good. So Yugoslavia, the publisher administration, the way they assign their royalties, if there's two songs named Party Time, it sorts another column alphabetically. So, say for instance, if it was, maybe it was the last name of the composer, and this DJ's name started with a P, and Alex North's name starts with an N. So Alex North was getting his money, just because of the way the system in that other country took care of their business. So we're encouraged to, if you were going to do a Weekly World opening theme, you probably want to do Weekly World opening theme 247 or something like that. So, and just anything you could do to make it more distinct. You put your usage on there. See that MT? That means main title. That gets probably 3 times more money, generates more money than a score. Like all what we've been working with has been score, background score. So main title was those little shorties I showed you. That just gets more money because it's a bigger deal, and it's just like you're focusing on the screen, and there's no actors like speaking. You put your timings in there, time in, time out, duration. You put your role on there, and you can see there's composers and publishers. So if you got multiple people, there's room for that. Composer, writers, publisher's name over here. Then you got your affiliation, who you're signed up with. I'm BMI, like I said. ASCAP is just the same thing, depending on which one you want to join. And this one's pretty easy. This one's all 50-50, but I've seen some gnarly cue sheets that get pretty complex. That's from a creator standpoint, whether you're a composer or a songwriter or a publisher or a song house or a music supervisor, that you're generating songs and writing songs. This is where your royalties come from. There's 2 separate streams of income. Hopefully you would get paid to do the work, like a fee. You get a fee to compose a score or write a song. If you're just starting out, you just do it because for the experience and maybe get a break. But so that's certain money, and this is certain money, totally separate. So if you don't get it in the system, you just won't see the money. Yes.
You said it's certain money, but when 4 people are getting 50%, it makes me wonder if 2 of them are having uncertain money.
Well, BMI side does it kind of funny. It adds up to 200%. But really what they're trying to do is divide the writing portion and the publishing portion is 50-50 and 50-50. They're the only ones who do that, and I'm sure it's because they started in 1723, that's how they did it. And they just don't want to change it. But everybody else is 100%, so the writers would each get 25%, and the publishers would each get 25%.
You have to watch out because somebody's going to take your product or your money that you're deserved and they'll put their name on it.
Which in the United States is illegal. We're protected very well, creators are protected very well in the States, it's not so much in other countries. I've seen shows that I've aired in other countries that I've never seen on my statement. It's usually countries where I know the cable is hijacked, you know, like down in South America, Nicaragua, I saw a bunch of stuff. They don't even, it's all, what do you call it when you steal your neighbor's cable?
Pirating.
Pirating, yes. Coveting your neighbor's cable. Okay. There's another thing called, oh, well, here's 42, speaking of revenue streams, 42 revenue streams, and these keep growing because of the internet, but the main other second source, you see down there, digital performance royalties, number 19, that's become a big deal now because, I don't know if you heard, you know, like 10 years ago when YouTube and Netflix and all these, Napster were all starting up and they're like just using the music and not paying any royalties, so there was a big lot of court cases and hey, you can't use our music and we want some money for that. And so they've actually finally, like 3 weeks ago, have come up with a law, which our dear President Trump has signed into law, the Music Modernization Act. We've needed it for 10 or 15 years, but it's a major victory. And you probably haven't, has anybody heard of that? Yep. Yeah, okay. You're going to hear a lot about it because it finally addresses remuneration for the way we all receive music now. There's so many different ways. Just within digital performance royalties, now that's a third, as far as my work is concerned, that's a third area of income generation for me, so I got to get that together. I haven't signed up for any of this stuff, but I figured since it's passed that I got to do it now. So that'll cover stuff, things like YouTube, I mean literally, it'll cover whatever, any kind of Netflix, anything, and it's a very specific type of royalty. It's what they call, in the past they've called it a mechanical royalty. It's the same royalty you used to pay when you would go buy a vinyl record at the record store. There's a compulsory amount set by the government that you would pay, I forget what it is, but each record store owner at the point of sale would have to send that to the publisher. Maybe it's 25 cents, who knows. But now since we don't, a lot of, 99.9% of music is not physical, it's not on a cassette, it's not on a vinyl, it's not on a CD, it's not on an 8-track, it's not on a wire recorder. So that law is really addressing a lot of those issues. And I'll tell you, I mean, you guys know, you see the counts of streaming. You can have a little piece of music on something, 30 seconds, and if it's viewed by 5 million people, that ends up being hundreds of, maybe thousands of dollars. And people can view it just like that. So, yes?
I know there's some copyright stuff being either processed or voted on in the EU right now. Does that affect you at all? Or?
Yeah, sure, because that's the pain in the butt about publishing, is that you have a different deal with every country. And if you're a member of BMI or ASCAP, they pretty much got that part of it covered. But that, remember, that's only intellectual royalties. It's only the actual composition or the drawing or whatever art you do. You own that actual property. So BMI would never collect on a VHS tape sold or a DVD sold. So why did I start talking about this?
EU.
Oh, right. So if if you really have the energy and the time and the know-how, it would benefit a composer or a songwriter to actually have your deal with each country. Because then you're getting, first of all, you're not getting the percentage, like the management fee, that in some companies I've seen as high as 20%. So if you got a song that makes $1,000 in Germany, they send you a check for $800, just so they can manage it. But if you're signed up with that agency in Germany, then you just pay what all the Germans pay for their stuff. It was just pennies on that kind of dollar. So, and Europe and America are the big guys. You know, I think there's, in my estimate, there's a lot of music being produced out of both countries. And there's a lot of other music going on, but Europe's huge. And Europe just happens to be, even on paper and also as far as the numbers, they tend to honor the musician or the artist more. And I think it's because their culture, they've been developed in music for 400, 500 years. You know, in America, you know, started with Louis Armstrong, maybe Scott Joplin. So maybe America's we're still only 120, 130 years old in the music business. And Europe's been there forever, so. Any other just general questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so what got your foot into the door of this kind of business? Like, what was the first thing that really kind of kicked you off?
Luck. But I was prepared.
You got to be ready for
yeah, you got to have, if you're going to have that shot, you know, that moment where you have your break, and I think